Most Goetia tend to flaunt all of their wealth and their power, their status within hell, but none more so than the avian variant of them, especially one such as Andreophis and the rest. At one point, even Stolas was like this before he started to realize what he truly wanted. But nonetheless, most of them are very smug. It is not just Stolas who had sex with those that they would consider to be vagabonds or lowborns or plebeians, peasants and whatnot, behind closed doors so the other nobility couldn't see. All the nobility love to flaunt about how they're marrying or dating somebody of high status, but behind those closed doors, who knows who they were truly laying with, and just how many? In hell, there was such a Goetia, one that was handsome, regal, beautiful, smooth-talking, charismatic, quite wealthy, and surrounded by fans of theirs. And no, this is not Salexi we're talking about. It's safe to say I'm a bit more than something so based. And yes, I will glaze myself, sue me. But no, it is not Salexi we're talking about. For this particular one, we'll just call them Heartbreaker. Yes, because that's what they are, a heartbreaker. This avian Goetia, Heartbreaker, they charm the plebeians, they woo them, they promise them greatness, and after they had their moment with them, after they became bored with them, they would discard them, throw them aside, leave them with nothing, and take everything from them. And yes, you could argue Salexi does the same thing, but the difference is that Heartbreaker lies so much, it's like breathing for them. At least Salexi's honest about it. Heartbreaker would constantly go on and talk about how powerful and how great they are, but in actuality, they're just a spoiled brat that inherited a lot of money, of where their father does everything for them. And when the going gets tough, they simply rely on mommy and daddy to save them. This is abhorrent to Salexi. While Salexi can be smug of themselves, and they even admit this, they cannot stand such fake personality. It is disgusting. And worse yet, this little worm, this privileged little child on top of a mountain of gold, dares to proclaim that they are the Tempter Lord, the Master of Temptation. This could not stand. And so, Salexi decided to pay them a little visit. Heartbreaker was hosting yet another one of their little balls, their little soirees, so they can try to tempt more people. Salexi shows up completely unannounced, of course. They were not invited, and that's how they wanted it to be. Salexi approaches the ball. You can hear the distant noise of chatter, ballroom music, the clattering of wine glasses coming together as they cheers. As they walk towards the door, two guards, of course, try to stop them and politely tell them that they need an invitation to enter. Salexi, of course, ignores them, and they walk past them as if they're not even there. They shout demanding for them to stop, but before they could even grab Salexi, both of their necks were grabbed by a very large hand that is almost larger than their face, and they're slowly lifted up by their butler Timothy. They kick and squirm in his hands. Timothy doesn't even flinch. They would scream, but they can't even let a single bit of air out of their throats. With a single flick of the wrist, Timothy snaps both of their necks and drops them like sacks of potatoes as they die, falling to the floor. As Timothy continues to walk forward and then turns around, guarding the entrance, as if they were the butler of this ball guarding the front. They wanted to make sure that no one would leave. Salexi walks in, and then they see it. An ocean of imps and incubi swarming the place. Not a single Goetia, not a single person of royalty. But at the center they could see them. The Heartbreaker. Everyone talking and yammering on, with Heartbreaker's voice being the loudest one, of course. From this view, Salexi could tell that this person had an ego that was so fragile and so delicate, they had to be surrounded by people who were considered lesser or weaker, so that their very weak will could dominate them. If even one person with an actual backbone or with true confidence entered that room, his presence, his dominating will, would shatter into 1,000 pieces. And that's when Salexi smiles and starts to walk in through the door frame. As Salexi walks in, all the imps and incubi looked upon them with awe, fear, and shock. They didn't think there was going to be another Iris Goetia here, though of course they don't really know what Salexi truly is. Though Salexi ignores them and continues to walk forward. As they walk forward, all the imps and incubi would move aside as if their very presence was parting the sea. Heartbreaker was mid-conversation talking about their supposed escapades, about how great they thought they were, and once they saw Salexi, they stuttered, they stopped. The other succubi and incubi slowly moved away. They could feel the tension in the room. Heartbreaker's voice starts to stutter, and they're surprised, of course, as they try to struggle and find the words. And so, as Salexi sways their hips and looks around left and right, with their eyes squinted in a very alluring but intimidating kind of way, then makes their little announcement. Ah, so this is where the Tempter Lord comes to fester. Heartbreaker was not prepared for this. They stutter and try to muster forth a commanding, dominating voice and presence, but it is pathetic at best. But they try anyway, and of course Salexi just keeps smiling and walking forward as they keep shouting about how they rule this place and how they should leave. Heartbreaker tries to stumble backwards, knocking into tables, knocking over plates and cups. Salexi just keeps walking forward, staring at them, slowly picking up their pace and getting closer and closer to them. Salexi finally catches up to them and grabs them by the shirt and starts to lift them slowly. The audience gasps in anticipation. Heartbreaker, being an Iris Goetia, was fairly tall, but Salexi was taller than them by at least a foot. They slowly lift them and make them sit upon the edge of a table in front of everyone as plates and cups fall over. Heartbreaker just sits there, all nervous, staring up at Salexi. They feel so aroused, their heart beating, but they also feel so embarrassed. They feel like some kind of child about to be scolded by an adult. Salexi takes their claws and gently caresses their face, and just looks at them as their claws slowly graze their cheeks, going down their neck, and just whispers to them, "You have such a handsome face. Why do you hide it behind your wall of lies?" Heartbreaker tries to retort. They stutter their words, and before they could even get a full sentence out, Salexi just lurches in like a predator and starts kissing them so sensually. The crowd makes an audible gasp. They couldn't believe what was happening, and they didn't even want to leave. They wanted to see where this was going. And so it continued. Salexi was quite literally alluring and pleasing this little Arscoisha in front of everyone, for all to see. No one has ever witnessed Heartbreaker ever be so submissive. They moan and they whine as Salexi keeps kissing them. Salexi's claws, like a razor-sharp blade, slowly graze their shirt as it rips it apart, but not cutting their actual skin, just tearing apart the fabric, revealing their chest. Salexi's claws retract, and then they start to please their chest as they continue to kiss them. It is at this time that as Salexi is kissing them, their eyes are closed, as Heartbreaker's eyes are wide open as they tremble before them, embracing their warm lips. Salexi's eyes slowly open wide, and their eyes start to swirl, making a hypnotic stare, forcing them to stare into their eyes as they kiss them. As this goes on, as Salexi continues to deep-throat their tongue into their throat, the mystical powers of their miasma starts to come out from their throat and enter Heartbreaker's. Heartbreaker starts to become very warm. Their eyes glow a magenta pink. They are infatuated with Salexi now. They can't get enough of them. They wrap their arms around them, grab them so tightly, desperate for them. They want them so badly. But Salexi would not give them their prize so easily. They throw them down. Heartbreaker's back makes an audible thud as the glassware shatters, and they stare at Salexi, wondering why, begging for them to continue. But instead, Salexi just smiles. They say nothing, and then they walk away. It is at this moment Heartbreaker's heart begins to thump so fast and so loudly. They're so overwhelmingly allured by them. They, like some kind of wild animal, crawl off the table and onto the floor, begging and beseeching Salexi to come back and to finish what they started, begging them to continue, that they desired more from them. But Salexi ignored them and continued to walk away. Heartbreaker then goes feverishly mad with lust and desire as they begin to shout about how every imp, every incubi, every succubus that they've ever been with didn't matter to them, that they lied to them and told them about how they would give them everything, and all of it was just lies just to have a one-night stand, and none of it compared to that brief moment that them and Salexi just had. Their face blushing so red, their eyes showing swirls of madness as their hypnotic gaze continues. They scream about how they would gladly slay and genocide every single last person they've ever laid with if it meant even having but a single kiss from Salexi. All of Heartbreaker's truths laid bare. It was at this moment that Heartbreaker snaps out of it, shakes their head, looks all around, and sees a sea of angry faces. It is, of course, that at this time, Heartbreaker not only realized that they just spilt the beans, but they realized that more than half of the guests are those they once tempted, and none of them all realized that they all were the same victim. They all kept it to themselves, as if they were the only one who was actually affected. They chatter amongst themselves, saying that, "Oh, did I not matter to you?" And another one would say the same and say, "Oh, what about that night we had?" And it goes off into a daisy chain where all of them begin to realize that all of them were ruined and tempted by Heartbreaker. Heartbreaker, of course, tries to explain themselves, but it falls upon deaf ears as all of them shout over him. They all, like an angry mob, go towards him and threatening such horrible violence on them, as Heartbreaker screams in despair, realizing that not only are they about to embrace all kinds of physical pain, but they ended up realizing that their reputation is completely ruined. They will not be able to recover from this at all. But the worst pain for them, as they lay there being beaten, kicked, their shirts being ripped and ruined, food being thrown at them, they realized there was one pain far greater than all of this, even with the pain of their reputation destroyed. That pain was the fact that they will never get to kiss Salexi ever again. And not because it was Salexi, as alluring as it was, but because they now realized this is exactly what they did to everyone else. And thus, as Salexi walks out the door with Timothy trailing behind them, they hear the distant violence and screaming in the background instead of all the joyous sounds they heard before, and thus they say to themselves, "Normally I would consume that one and add their soul to the rest, but no, I will leave them with the curse of my temptation as they hunger for me for all time, but I will never see them again. Even when I'm starved, I will not visit them. Not a whisper, not a note, not a word. Just left with nothing but ashes and silence. And that will set the record of who really is the Tempter Lord, as they crawl and beg for my return, screaming to the skies as if I'm some kind of god, begging for me to give them a sign. And I will look down, and I will whisper to myself, "No." And they won't even hear me say that either. Just nothing. Nothing.